Well, the gunfight's over, and now it's time for the plot to really kick off. Let's get started and talk about Wayne visiting the police precinct. It's our first time being inside Wayne's head, a very dangerous place to be sure, and immediately we get introduced to his two big features: his love of hats and his love of accents. His love of hats is interesting. I love the whole spiel he gives about how having a ill-fitting hat will make someone downright ornery or onright disagreeable is I think the word he actually uses. But it's such a great way to demonstrate his obsession with hats. And then we get to see his angle of accents. This book really makes me think about accents in a way that I never have before. I love Brandon's entire way of telling the story of accents as a combination of who raised you, who you were around, where you were from, what type of profession you joined. It's a very interesting way to do it. And Wayne just constantly practicing these accents and trying to throw in little tidbits here and there about what it is he's looking for in an accent that makes him pick up on things. It's a very nice touch from Brandon. Wayne does such a good job of impersonating the other Octant leader. I forget the name, but I love I love just the concept of pretend like you belong and people will assume you do. It's an incredible trick. I would use it actually at college to sneak past and get really good parking spaces after hours. Just act like you belong, and a lot of guards will just let you through. And if they don't, they'll oh, just park where everyone else is. No loss here. I love Wayne going in and just wanting to find someone to talk to. He just needs to talk to one because they'll point him to the other one. And he does a good job of playing police politics. Anytime someone talks about police work, it's interesting in these big cities because prestige matters. Prestige matters, especially in older times where it was harder to move up the ladder. It makes a lot of sense that you could play a little bit of politics with it. And I like I mean, obviously he can't actually weaponize the bureaucracy, but just the threat of I can bog you down in transfer requests. So let me interview him. We'll move past this whole thing. I always think back to the Incredibles. They're penetrating the bureaucracy. It's good stuff. I like it. I also like Wayne's interview tactics where he's pretending to be working for the other side using his slider abilities. It's an interesting way to get around the fact that people would normally understand what's going on. Just hold very still and just keep talking. Otherwise, they'll see the blur. It'll all go all matrix on them. No, just hold still. And I like his comment. Dang it. What was the conversation? He talked with the first one and then the second one. What was the name of the other character? It was Sindrin. That's right. Sindrin. I like how he gets the one to betray that Sindrin might talk because he's new. And he uses that information to convince Sindrin to tell him other stuff. And I like Wayne. This is before we get the full background of Wayne. I like Wayne being very sympathetic to Sindrin. He understands he's just in it for the money. He doesn't like all this talk about punishment that the boss gives. And he's not very good at it. And Wayne who is also a former thief. He understands. He understands that desperation. And so he's trying to do what Wax did for him and helping a wayward kid get on the straight and narrow. It's a very nice touch on Brandon's part. The other thing I really like about this is the fact that Wayne is trying to get those scones. He wants those scones. I know I shouldn't keep going back to college, but I swear half of college existence was just trying to find out where there was free food that people were doing to promote things and just try and steal a free meal from someone. I relate to Wayne in this. Well, we're back at Ladrian Manor now. Wax and Marcy are trying to figure out what the guns are made out of and are trying to figure out the mystery of why they're kidnapping certain people. Wayne gets back, they get the information, and then the butler steps in. And he first tries to poison Wax, but Wayne, being the kleptomaniac he is, steals Wax's tea and drinks it. Wax accidentally embarrasses Marcy by figuring out her parentage, and then Wayne does the tea's poisoned, and then collapses, and that's when Tiom, I finally remembered the butler's proper spelling now that we're here for his death. Tiom finally reveals himself and reveals the exploding picnic basket, Yogi Bear's nightmare. Yeah, I didn't expect to make a Yogi Bear reference when I started today. And Wayne throws up the speed bubble. And one, I love getting to see sort of what is the time dilation that is going on here. And on top of it all, I love seeing Wax and Wayne, who they've been through these things before. And even though Wayne's just been poisoned and there's a bomb exploding in front of them, they're still giving each other jaunty repartee. And Marcy's freaking out because, oh, I don't know, there's an explosion coming for them. Interesting. I would freak out a little. I'd probably be a lot more like Marcy. Probably a lot worse than Marcy, as we find out later. She understands how the speed bubble works. It is an awesome sequence of them trying to figure out how to get away from this explosion. And I like it because it's also a really good way to sort of refresh people on the mechanics of how allomancy and Furukami work, such that they, Wax can't fly. He can only push. He can only push on anchors heavier than him. Otherwise, they're what go flying. And then he realizes, I'm just gonna get super heavy, so heavy that the book says he not compounded, but he just tapped his weight to where he was weighing more than a building when he pulled this feat off, which is just, it's kind of awesome. The idea of Furukami and how they can, it's not so much you're storing weight as you're storing weight over a period of time. And so you can sit here and multiply the effect if you're willing to use up a bunch of the time that you saved. We also get to see Wayne's healing in action with a very disturbing rip of his entire back skin off. Ugh. That was nasty. And I like that Marcy gave us the appropriate response of bleh. But I like that they also use this ability, or they use the fact that this looks like they're dead to give themselves some time to go investigate things. It's a good way to approach it. I also really like the fact that we're sitting here and the butler did it. I love that the butler did it. In the stories, the butler always does it, and Brandon does a good job of showcasing that the butler always knows all the secrets. Always. No, I find it very well written, the fact that we see that Tiom doesn't want anyone else to be hurt by this. He's not trying to... He's operating under the idea of, what's the principle? Minimum necessary force. That's the principle. And he doesn't want anyone else to be hurt. 'Cause he does care for the people in this house. He just also has loyalties to the set. So that's a man being pulled in two different directions. Tiom. If only he had a name that just actually looked the way it should be pronounced. I don't like that. I don't like it at all. So really, not poor Tiom. Good riddance, Tiom, and your unnecessary consonants in your name. The Vanisher's Hideout was a lot of fun detective work. One, I like the constant disarming of traps. I don't know what, maybe it's the D&D player in me, but disarming of traps is always very satisfying. Just feels good to know that when someone thought they were going to be more clever than you and you figured them out. Good work. I also just like the methodical detective work that they do. Why are these windows dark? Probably to prevent people from seeing this. Wait, where do these doors go? How easy do they open? They're greased. This opens up often. And trying to put the details together to figure out what it was the Vanishers were doing here, even though they've all left. I love a good detective story. I've read a couple of the Sherlock Holmes stories, and I think Arthur Conan Doyle's writing actually holds up very well. But I like seeing Brandon take a crack at it. It's very entertaining. Wayne opening up about his past is gut wrenching. Brandon pulls out all the tricks in the book to get us to like Wayne before this reveal, so that when we find out Wayne accidentally killed a man while doing something illegal, you already sympathize with Wayne. You want to root for him. But Wayne doesn't sugarcoat what his sins are, and I like that. I like that he's facing it very directly. And it's a topic that Brandon really likes to explore. He's explored it a bit with Dalinar as well, the idea of what is justice, what is forgiveness, and how do you balance these things? Because someone like Dalinar, who's a literal war criminal, and now he's this really good man. How do you balance those two things? It's not something you can just snap a finger and suddenly everything's okay. And Wayne talks about that, how he sends half of everything he owes or he earns to this family, and they still hate him because he killed their father, killed the husband, but they still accept the money. They need the help. But like, think about how twisted that would be for that family. The only way that you're surviving and getting through life is the person who killed your father is giving you money. That would not be pleasant. That's not a pleasant thing. And Brandon doesn't shy from it. I like that Brandon doesn't shy from it. He doesn't give us a bunch of paragons. He gives us complicated people with complicated backgrounds and challenges us to think, what would we do in that situation? I don't know. What is just? What is fair? I don't know. But it makes for excellent storytelling. I love the lead in to Miles' perspective with Wax and Wayne figuring out who it is that's leading the Vanishers. And Wax giving the whole, what do you know about Miles Dagute? When I listened to the audiobook, I was shocked that that name was supposed to be pronounced Dagute. I always forget the French roots to the Mistborn world, because I definitely read that as a Dagouter. And I'm like, man, what is a Dagouter? I've never heard of that. I love getting Miles' perspective and seeing how dangerous he is. Gold compounding. He's what is it, the T-1000? Is that the Terminator 2? I think it's the T-1000. It is interesting to see a man who truly believes in his cause, that he is here to make the elites of Elendel pay for all the injustices they've caused. I love that he gives this speech about how, no, we're following the footsteps of the survivor. I love seeing survivorism taken to its extreme. Kelsier was a revolutionary, and so were his crew. This entire society is built on the backs of these revolutionaries. And so when someone feels tyranny is afoot, you have to start asking yourself some very serious questions about what would Kelsier and his crew do. The same that we always hear, what would Jesus do from Christians in modern day? They would be asking the same thing. And Kelsier was a severe man. He very well might go on a warpath on people he feels are being tyrants. And that puts us in a very interesting situation where we have two lawmen, one claiming to uphold a higher law and the other trying to uphold the literal law, more in the Skybreakers vein. And what happens with two men who are both trying to do what they think is right? Man, I love drama like that. But we already know that Miles is operating a little bit from a twisted perspective because he's already aligned himself with Mr. Suit. Let's talk about Mr. Suit. Obviously, at this point, we don't know that Mr. Suit is Wax's uncle. But I love seeing how in control he is, how he's measuring Miles' reaction to things, and Miles is measuring his reaction to things. And these are two men who, they're not allies out of a shared purpose, they're allies out of a shared goal. They both want the destabilization of Ellendale. Now, for different purposes. And in many ways, it's an alliance of convenience. And well, actually, it's not in many ways. It's literally an alliance of convenience. They don't trust each other. I love seeing the trope of two bad guys who don't trust one another, waiting to see who's going to backstab who first. There's something satisfying about that as a reader. Maybe because at a certain point, it creates an idea of how would you act in their shoes? Who would you betray? Who should betray first? And that unease, that tension makes for an excellent scene. We finally end with Marcy insisting to stay around Wax and Wayne. Wax doesn't like having a very inexperienced civilian in the line of danger. However, Marcy points out she's already in danger and she feels the safest place is going to be next to Wax and Wayne because they can defend her. And she also knows she's an asset to them. Her experience and her education in college, not to mention her rifle shooting, make her someone it's worthy for her to be around there. She's useful. She's earned it. But it's also the concern of, yeah, you may be useful, but you don't have experience with this. And this is dangerous. Where is safe? I don't know. I don't know where is safe because they're looking out for me. Any space that you own or my father owns will be obvious, and going with any sort of going to any other location is going to have its own set of risks involved. And so she determines that no, it's safest near Wax and Wayne. And I love that Wayne is, no, it's not. Things tend to explode around Wax, including picnic baskets. It's not safe being around him. But ultimately, they back down due to her logic. I also like seeing their conversation about her being a pulsar. I like, first of all, that Wax has figured that out due to just her reaction to things and certain bits of conversation. Very, very Sherlockian. I like her viewing it as almost a curse. That now it's one that's born from her father. Parents inadvertently tend to place their own insecurities onto their children, and she's definitely inherited this from her father, seeing her pulsar powers as something that isn't worthy. But it's a good bit of foreshadowing here. Wax is able to, not, I wouldn't say convince her, but it definitely talks up, look, not every tool is useful for every situation. I'm sure this will be useful for something specific, which is a good deal of foreshadowing towards not only the end of this plot, but going forward in Era 2, once we start getting the allomantic grenades, her power starts to become a very useful thing. So I like that we end here with this trio deciding, well, we're in it to win it. We're going to figure out what Miles is up to and figure out how to stop him. It's a good bit of conversation. I also love, this is our first bit of talking about Renette. Oh, I can't wait for the Renette scene. I love Renette. Renette is the best. All right, that ends this edition of the Cosmere Reread, going through 8 through 11 of Alloy of Law. The next section is going to be a bit bigger. We need to catch up a little bit after the rocky start that we've had. So the next set of chapters are going to be chapters 12 through 18. 12 through 18. So we'll be getting back on that, appropriate enough for this book, back on the saddle, and we'll be posting these once a week. I'm looking forward to it. The biggest problem, this was brought up in our Discord, that just starting to read a little bit of this, I want to keep going, even though I need to make the videos first. And so having to slow down for a commentary like this, it's a new experience and not one that I'm not patient enough. But I am learning patience. And maybe the real friends were the patience we made along the way. No, that doesn't sound right. Anyway, I will see you for chapters 12 through 18. And until next time, thanks for listening. And remember, there's always another secret.